Hello, kiddies. Hello, Belle. How you doing there? It's chapter 11, Camp Couscous. Everybody settled here? Camp Couscous was on a small lake deep in the woods of Ontario, Canada. There were no summer cottages on the lake, no outboard motors, no roads with cars rushing by. It was way into the woods, just right for boys. Mr. Beaver left Sam and Lewis at the end of a dirt road, and they finished their journey to camp by canoe. Wait a minute. Lewis and Sam finished their journey to camp by canoe? We got to take a look at this. Look at this, baby. There's Lewis paddling. No. It's Sam paddling and Lewis in the front. Can we see that? That's a hoot. Well, Sam sat in the back and paddled, and Lewis stood in the bow and looked straight ahead. He was the lookout. The camp consisted of a big log cabin where everybody ate, 7 tents where the boys and the counselors slept, and a dock out front, and the bathrooms were way out in the back. They had like an outdoor shower type of thing. The woods were all around, but there was a big flat spot that had made into a tennis court, and there were plenty of canoes in which to take trips to the other lakes. All in all, there were about 40 different boys there. When Sam's canoe came up to the sandy beach next to the dock, Lewis stepped ashore, wearing his slate, his chalk pencil, and his trumpet. About 20 of the boys rushed down to the landing to see what was going on, and they could hardly believe their eyes. Now look at this. Do we see Lewis over here? With the stuff around his neck and all the boys looking? This was something. Hey, look what's over here, said one of the boys. It's a bird. Look at the size of him. Everybody crowded around Lewis, wanting to get a closer look at the new camper. Sam had to push some of the boys back to keep Lewis from getting crushed. Take it easy, will you? Sam said. That evening after supper, the director of the camp, Mr. Brickle, built a big campfire in front of the main lodge, and the boys all gathered around. And they sang songs and toasted marshmallows and made s'mores and swatted at the mosquitoes. Sometimes you couldn't understand the words of the song because the boys sang with the marshmallows in their mouth. Lewis did not join the group. He stood there by himself at a little distance. Well, of course, he doesn't speak anyway. After a while, Mr. Brickle rose to his feet and addressed the boys and the counselors. I call your attention, he said, to a new camper in our midst, Lewis the Swan. He is a trumpeter swan, a very rare bird. We're very lucky to have him employed at the same salary I pay my junior counselors, $100 for the season. He is gentle, and he doesn't speak. He came here from Montana with Sam Beaver. Lewis is a musician, and like most musicians, he is in need of money. He will wake you at daybreak with his trumpet, and he will call you to meals with his trumpet. And at night, when you're dropping off to sleep, he will play taps on his trumpet. Oops, I turned 2 pages at once. Just a minute here. And that will bring the day to a close. I caution you to treat him as an equal and treat him with respect. He packs a terrific wallop with one of those wings. I now introduce for your listening pleasure, Lewis the Swan. Take a bow, Lewis. Well, Lewis was a little embarrassed, but he came forward and he bowed. And then he raised his trumpet to his mouth and blew a long caw-caw. When he finished, all the way across the lake there was an echo. Caw-caw. The boys clapped and Lewis bowed again. Sam Beaver, sitting with the others, his mouth full of marshmallows, was delighted that his plan had succeeded. At the end of the summer, Lewis would have $100. A boy named Applegate Skinner stood up. Mr. Brickle, he said, what about me? I don't care for birds. I never liked birds. Okay, Applegate, said Mr. Brickle. You don't have to like birds if that's the way you feel about it. Just go ahead not liking birds. Everyone is entitled to his likes and dislikes. Come to think of it, I don't care for pistachio ice cream. I don't know why, I just don't like it. Don't forget, however, that Lewis is one of your counselors. Whether you like him or not, he must be treated with respect. One of the new boys who had never been to camp before stood up. Mr. Brickle, he said, why is this camp called Camp Couscous? What does couscous mean? It's an Indian name for the great horned owl, replied Mr. Brickle. The new boy thought about this for a minute. Why don't you just call it Camp Great Horned Owl instead of Camp Couscous? Because, replied Mr. Brickle, a boys' camp should have a peculiar name. Otherwise, it doesn't sound interesting. Couscous is a terrific name. It's a long word, but it only has 3 letters in it. It has 2 S's, 3 K's, and 6 O's. You don't find many names as kooky as that. The stranger the name, the better the camp. Anyway, welcome to Camp Couscous. It rhymes with moose, and that's another good thing about it. And now it's time for everybody to go to bed. You may take a swim before breakfast tomorrow morning, and you don't need to wear your swim trunks. Just jump out of bed when you hear the trumpet, take off your jammies, race to the dock, and dive in. I'll be there ahead of you doing my celebrated backflip from the diving tower. It freshens me up for the hard day ahead. Good night, Lewis. Good night, Sam. Good night, Applegate. Good night, all. The light was fading. It was getting dark. The boys straggled off to their tents in the darkness. The senior counselor sat together on the porch and talked. Sam crawled under his blankets in the tent, and then Lewis walked to a high, flat rock by the shore and stood there. And when it got dark enough, he faced the camp, raised the horn to his mouth, and blew taps. You never heard it, it's pretty cool. The last note seemed to linger on the still waters of the lake. From their beds, the boys heard the beautiful sound. They felt sleepy and serene, all happy, except Applegate Skinner, who didn't care for birds at bedtime, but he didn't care for them any time anyway. But even Applegate was soon asleep, along with the others in his tent. And he was asleep, and he was snoring. And people who dislike birds often snore. I don't know if that's a personal observation or what. A deep peace fell over Camp Couscous, and here is Lewis playing his celebrated trumpet. There it is. Oh, and that's the end of the chapter. Boy, that was a quick one, huh? All right, time for bed.